Well, I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that's been going on in MMA lately. This is a change of pace, actually. Instead of talking about wrestling, but the next video, I will talk about wrestling. Quite a few things like the draft and all of that. There's just quite a few things I noticed. I did watch the Strikeforce card, or some of it, last week with Frank Shamrock and Nick Diaz, and I have to say I was very impressed with the card and the overall presentation. Strikeforce looked like they could be a player in the mixed martial arts game and hopefully have a long term future. Scott Coker's a very smart businessman, as we know, and he's starting from the ground up and he's not diving in and doing the wrong things with, paying out and things like that, which I think has been the problem with Affliction and why they've struggled so much. But as for the fights, I did see the Scott Smith and Benji Reddick fight. I thought Scott Smith really came out looking really, really good out of that fight. Scott Smith to me has not had a boring fight in a while now. He has exciting fights and he just likes to stand and hit and hit and hit and hit. And if you're a casual fan in particular, you just want to see people smash each other in the face. And Scott Smith does a very, very good job of doing that and making it watchable. And I thought himself and Reddick came out looking good on the TV program. Brett Rogers did very well. It's his 10th fight now, and he came out looking really good too. Really, I think that should have been one of the guys the Elite XC should have built around Brett Rogers really, rather than Kimbo Slice. But oh well, business is business. And one of the other main fights actually was the Frank Shamrock Nick Diaz fight. Now that was interesting to me because for one of the first times, Frank just looked like he was out of his depth. Nick Diaz had the size and reach advantage over Frank. He had the advantage on the ground, he had the advantage standing up, and he just pummeled him for, the 2 rounds of the fight. Frank really didn't look like the Frank Shamrock that I saw in the last 2 fights, or even the Frank Shamrock of old. He just looked outmatched. And I guess now people are wondering where he goes from there. Does he fight at a lighter weight, which maybe he could, because the sport of MMA has changed now, and you're getting bigger guys cutting down to smaller weight classes and having the size and reach advantage. Look at someone like, who can I say? Who would be a good example? Oh, crap. Like someone like Dan Hardy, who fights in the UFC at welterweight. He's really 6'1" and weighs a lot more than he does, but cuts down to welterweight. Or actually, sorry, Anderson Silva, who really weighs 220 pounds and could fight at light heavyweight and even maybe fight at heavyweight. He really weighs 220, but he cuts all the way down to 185 pounds and has a distinct size advantage. When you see things like that, you wonder really now, is Frank wasting his time fighting as a middleweight, or maybe would it be more beneficial for him as he gets older and gets slightly smaller to fight at a welterweight, or maybe take catchweight fights where this size isn't so much of a problem. But all in all, they did really well. Another thing I want to talk about is Dana White being at it again. I mean, it's laughable, Dana White. I mean, sometimes I like him. He promotes great fights for the UFC, and fights that I want to see. But his constant disrespect and dismissing of the world outside of the UFC is just ridiculous. And I think he makes the sport look very bad when he does that, especially with his latest comments about Fedor. Now, okay, we all will disagree on who we think the pound for pound best fighter is. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But his reasons, like, oh, Fedor's fat, Fedor's out of shape, Fedor hasn't fought anybody credible, is just ridiculous to me. And I don't agree with that. Fedor beat Arlovsky, uh, and Arlovsky was a top contender in the UFC heavyweight division. In fact, Arlovsky was a heavyweight champion in the UFC and is a top 10 heavyweight in some people's opinions. He beat Tim Sylvia, and Tim Sylvia is a credible fighter. I mean, Dana White keeps having to say all these things, and I think he says what he says to make Fedor look bad because, well, he doesn't have him under contract, and Fedor's not a mark for Dana White and the standard UFC contract. So because of that, Dana's just going to dismiss him and berate him. But I really wonder how different it would be if Fedor actually was in the UFC and winning fights in the UFC, what Dana White would be saying. I truly believe his tune would change. Other than that, we got the Shogun Rua Chuck Liddell fight. I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think it's a 50-50 fight for me. I truly believe that Chuck's camp saw Rua's fight with Coleman and thought it would be an easy fight for Liddell, and maybe it was because Rua looked terrible in the fight. His cardio just completely gone. I mean, the first round he was gassing. He couldn't turn Coleman over for a submission. He had no energy. And I guess they saw that and thought, right, well, Chuck can beat him. But I have the feeling that maybe Rua's conditioning and cardio, if it's back up and it's where it should be, then I think he's going to give Chuck a very, very hard time and possibly steal the victory. I'm not too sure. Chuck hasn't looked too good in these last couple of fights. The fight with Evans, he didn't look too bad actually, but he allowed himself to get caught and he's slowing down, and he does. I wonder what skills he brings to this fight rather than he's just. I hope he brings new skills to the fight to surprise Hua. Anyway, that's it for now. Sorry, it was a bit of a ramble. I just come home from work, so I'm feeling like crap. Hit me up. I'm going to do another video in a little bit, and that's going to be a wrestling video for all my wrestling heads out there. Anyway, see you later, man.